Hi Virgo, this is your April 2013 forecast. We're going to start off the month with a lot of planetary influence in your 8th house. Your 8th house is the house of shared resources. So this could be loans, inheritance, a mortgage, maybe your spouse's income. This is not just about you. This is definitely about something that you possess or share with someone else, whether they're family members or an institution like a mortgage, something along those lines. So there's going to be a lot of focus on that at the beginning of the month. There's also a new moon in your 8th house on the 10th of April. And the new moons tend to signify the beginning of something. So maybe that's when you get a loan. Maybe you found out that you do qualify for a mortgage, or you do get an inheritance, which is not always, the best thing, but it's usually when something begins and it's in your 8th house. So maybe you have a family member that has offered to help you out in some way, or maybe you've offered to help someone out in some way financially. Maybe you won the lottery, although I wouldn't count on it. But those things are always possible at this time. Then mid-month to about the 3rd week of April, the focus will shift to the 9th house. The 9th house is a house of education and foreigners and foreign travel. So you'll start to focus more on maybe you're going to get started or apply for an educational course, or maybe you're planning a trip. Maybe you're talking to foreigners at this time. Mercury for the first half of the month will be in your 7th house. Your 7th house is the house of partnerships, whether they're romantic or business related. And Mercury is the planet of communication. So there'll be a lot of communication, possibly with a spouse or someone close to you at work, your best friend, but it can also be competitors, rivals. Maybe you're someone that's not a friend, but more of like a frenemy, where they're, you might have some issues there with regards to communication in your 7th house with people in close partnerships to you. Mid-month, it'll change to Mercury will move into your 8th house of shared resources. So again, the communication is going to make that shift to anything financially that you share with another person. So maybe you're talking to the bank about your loans, or maybe you're communicating with a sibling who's going to help you out with something financially. They're going to help you pay for something. Maybe you're talking to those relatives about an inheritance and how you're going to split that inheritance up. Pluto is the planet of structure, and that is in your 5th house of romance, fun, pleasure, sports, and children. And that is actually going to go retrograde this month on the 13th of April. And Pluto tends to knock down a structure so that it can renew and rebuild, kind of like a rebirth. So with Pluto going retrograde, what that's going to do is it's going to cause you to kind of reevaluate, rethink about things. Any kind of issues that you've brushed under the rug, you're going to have to look at them. It's going to force you to rebuild them in a way that works better. So maybe you've been taking a certain approach to having children. Maybe you really want to have children, and you've been taking a certain approach, and that approach is not working. So this is maybe you'll start to focus on that and think about a new way of going about it. Or maybe you've been involved in a sport and it's not really getting you where you wanted to go. So now you have to rethink that and reevaluate. And it just kind of pushes you in that direction. But this retrograde transit will be around for a few months. So you really have to know your personal chart, your natal chart, and see when this is going to affect you over that time frame. There's also a lunar eclipse on the 25th in your 3rd house. And your third house is communication. Lunar eclipses tend to be a little bit more emotional and tend to signify the end of something. So, so maybe you're finishing up a writing project. Maybe you've been working on some kind of advertising or publishing. Maybe you've been working on a book or some piece of writing. Maybe you've been communicating a lot with someone. And this might kind of wrap up that project that you've been working on. Lunar eclipses tend to be have a longer lasting effect than a full moon would. So, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out this month. But if you would like a more detailed forecast, please go to my webpage at astrologykiki.com. Thank you.